from the CyberHub bunker and studio, you're tuning in to the CyberHub podcast. And now for your host and CISO, James Azar.
All right, guys. Good morning, gang. How are y'all doing? Thursday, January 21st, 2021. The week is over, at least for me. This is the last practitioner brief of the week. Got a bunch of stuff coming tomorrow on Tech Corner. We're going to talk about cyber burnout. And I don't want to burn out, so I do this Monday through Thursday. So on Friday, I can give you something to enjoy, and I can go into the Shabbat just enjoying the weekend. So before we get started today, though, please make sure to comment and subscribe if you're watching us live on Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube. Thank you so much for your support. You can subscribe, share, tell your friends and colleagues all about the podcast. Today's show is supported by our friends over at KnowBe4 and Wistic. Check them out. They're also linked below here in the description, especially if you're watching us on YouTube or your favorite podcast listening platform. Good morning to everyone tuning in. Before we get started on this morning's show and we talk a little bit about what's going on, I want to invite you to join me for a little cup of coffee. Kind of a Scott Adams tradition, I know, but I love it. I drink so much coffee, and why not drink coffee with the people I hang out with the most, which is you guys. Really, honestly, like I podcast like so much now. My wife says I spend more time in front of the computer than I do anywhere else, and that's probably true. In front of the computer talking to a microphone. But until then, folks, have a cup of coffee with me. I'm drinking a double espresso. Whatever you drink, let me know what kind of coffee you enjoy. I'm a coffee connoisseur, an espresso connoisseur, and so I say that, with the utmost respect to people who are actual coffee lovers. Like, I enjoy espressos. I do a lot of espressos, as much as possible. A lot of things to talk about on today's show. Let's get right into what's happening from a practitioner CISO point of view. This story coming to us from Security Week. A Russian researcher has made public on GitHub a functional exploit targeting a critical vulnerability that SAP patched in its Solution Manager product in March of 2020. The Solution Manager, which is the SolMan, was designed to provide central management for SAP and non-SAP systems and requires for Solution Manager diagnostic agent to be installed on each host for the management of communications, monitoring, and diagnosis. It's been tracked to CVE 2020-6207, a CVSS score of a perfect 10. Okay. The security flaw itself is a missing authorization check in the EEM manager component of SolMan, which could allow an unauthenticated remote attacker to execute operating system commands on host as a DSMD agent. Significant. This is a extremely severe exploit. Now, here's the deal. This was patched in March of 2020. However, not everyone patched it. So now they're actively scanning this exploit. And they're looking for people who haven't patched in order to be able to execute and take over the systems. And so this was published on GitHub, which is fairly standard. And that's that. Another story by our friends over at Security Week. Oracle this week announced the availability of its first cumulative set of security fixes for 2021, their version of like Patch Tuesday that Microsoft and Adobe and everyone else does. So the January 2021 critical patch update addresses issues in both Oracle products and third-party components that are included in the company's products, with some of the patches meant to address multiple vulnerabilities, some even over a year old. In total, there's 329 new patches within the Oracle infrastructure. The January 2021 update also includes fixes for CVE 2021-4750, an exploited vulnerability in WebLogic Server, which we addressed in November of this show. There's a ton of stuff there. The next quarterly patch for Oracle is set to release on April 20th, 2021. So now you get 3 months to do 329 patches if they're all applicable to your Oracle system, which not all are. But go through this list. Here's how we do it. We go through the list of the patches. We have a matrix of compatibility of every single app within it. And then we prioritize which patches are critical for our operation, meaning what is the patch, what's the impact of the patch, What's the impact on business operations? And I think that's the number one question we ask ourselves. This app's important. It's critical to business operations. So let's first of all figure out when we're patching this and then move forward. It's really important to do that. So what would be a Thursday in January if we don't talk about SolarWinds? It wouldn't be a Thursday in January. It wouldn't be 2021. SolarWinds still going on. Microsoft issued a deep dive into how the hackers evaded detection. This is the report. It's linked below if you're watching us on YouTube or you're listening on your favorite podcast listening platform. As you subscribe, please see the link below, and you'll see the link to this Microsoft blog talking about how the attackers were able to infiltrate and remain undetected for so long. Microsoft has done an phenomenal job for the team over at Microsoft for the stuff they are doing with this. I mean, really phenomenal, and they're sharing it right away. They're not holding on to data. They're not kind of saying us first. They're just putting it out there for everyone to see. So the in-depth analysis is the backdoor to Cobalt Strike implants. So essentially the attack timeline, which has been described, shown right here. The initial accessing of SolarWinds now dates back to September of 2019 and gets discovered in December of 2020. So a little over a year that these guys hung in there. And a lot of it is, how did they stay undetected for that long? Well, according to this report, these guys were extremely sophisticated. They were patient. They understood OPSEC. They understood the different tools that were being used and how they operate. And they were able to hide all of that. And they were able to hide behind it. And I think that's critical. That's critical for a lot of different reasons. Because now we look at this and we go, how do we start to mitigate all of this? And as someone who's dealing with this on a personal level, every time we see another report, every time we get this in email from, Microsoft or any one of our security vendors, partners, or people wishing to do business with us, we have to sit down, take a deep breath, look at it. And one thing I will say when it comes to mitigation of stuff like this, it's critical to have a game plan. It's critical to understand that you can have like a head coach on a Sunday. You've got the top 50, 60, 70 plays you're going to call for different situations, for third and long, first and short, first and long, whatever the case may be. Well, as a CISO, you really got to have that. And that's pretty much your controls and your incident response plan. But as you discover more things, you really do want to address it a little differently. And you want to address it in a way where you're able to really kind of focus on the challenges. And then as things come on, where do they fit within the game plan? And that's really, really critical. The Microsoft reports it very extensive, talking about how they did this. I won't bore you with all the details. I suggest that you read it. The link is below if you're listening. And if you're watching us on YouTube, it's there as well. And it can be found on our website at cyberhubpodcast.com. So the NSA has come out with an alert to urge system admins to please eliminate old TLS protocols. So TLS protocols have been updated. People have old TLS protocols, think they're sufficient, that, hey, we're using old TLS protocols, we're still secured. NSA disagrees. They say, listen, the reason we've upgraded is because the old TLS protocols have been compromised. They're not as effective. You really do need to upgrade your TLS protocols. Please go through and do that. The NSA here gives instructions to system admins exactly how to do it. They talk about the obsolete TLS protocols and the new ones and how they comply with NIST. They talk about the key exchange mechanisms and the recommended configurations. All can be found. Again, also, the link to this NSA directive is available below if you're watching us on YouTube, or if you're listening, you can get it there. Click on it, share it with your system admins. It's critical. I know many of you have already got this, maybe even prior to listening to the podcast. But if you haven't, go and get it done. That's really, really important. That's it for our practitioner brief here today, guys. Thanks so much for sticking with me this week. I really do appreciate it. Make sure to subscribe and comment. Let me know what you think. I really do value comments, and I do these shows live. because as you're watching, I want to know what you're thinking, questions, all that good stuff. You can always ask them live. Join me with your cup of coffee. We'll be back on Monday with more. Tomorrow on Tech Corner, the cyber burnout, how to do that. Oh, and by the way, yesterday, CISO Talk. How did I forget? Richard Rushing, CISO over at Motorola Mobility. Joined me, 30-year industry vet, just an unbelievable brain and unbelievable mind, talking about leadership and cyber and all the different challenges that exist. You won't want to miss it. That's on our other channel called CISO Talk, a completely different podcast. If you're watching us, though, on YouTube, it's a different playlist. Same channel, same play, just different playlist. Go check it out. It'll be at the end of this video. Until then, guys, thanks so much for watching. Thank you. Thank you for all your support, and stay cyber safe.
We love feedback, so make sure to connect with us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform.